This is SkyTour News for October 29th to November 4th. I'm Amanda Curran. November 3rd, 1973. Mariner 10 is launched. Mariner 10 was an American robotic space probe launched by NASA on November 3rd, 1973 to fly by the planets Mercury and Venus, and was the last spacecraft in the Mariner program. The mission objectives were to measure Mercury's environment, atmosphere, surface, and body characteristics, and to make similar investigations of Venus. Secondary objectives were to perform experiments in the interplanetary medium and to obtain experience with a dual planet gravity assist mission. Mariner 10 was the first spacecraft to make use of an interplanetary gravitational slingshot maneuver, using Venus to bend its flight path and to bring its perihelion down to the level of Mercury's orbit. This maneuver put the spacecraft into orbit that repeatedly brought it back to Mercury. During its flyby of Venus, Mariner 10 discovered evidence of rotating clouds and a very weak magnetic field. Using a near-ultraviolet filter, it photographed Venus's chevron clouds and performed other atmospheric studies. As Mariner 10 veered around Venus, from the planet's night side to day side, the camera snapped the probe's first image of Venus, showing an illuminated arc of clouds over the North Pole emerging from the darkness. The spacecraft flew past Mercury 3 times. Due to the geometry of its orbit, the same side of Mercury was sunlit each time, so it was only able to map 40 to 45% of Mercury's surface, taking over 2,800 photos. It revealed a more or less moon-like surface. It thus contributed enormously to our understanding of Mercury, whose surface had not been successfully resolved through telescopic observation. Planning for Messenger, a spacecraft that surveyed Mercury until 2015, relied extensively on data and information collected by Mariner 10. November 2nd, 2000. The first crew arrives at the International Space Station. Expedition 1 was the first long-duration stay on the International Space Station. The 3-person crew stayed aboard the station for 136 days, from November 2000 to March 2001. It was the beginning of an uninterrupted human presence on the station, which continues as of this recording. The official start of the expedition occurred when the crew docked to the station on November 2, 2000, aboard the Russian spacecraft Soyuz TM-31, which had launched 2 days earlier. During their mission, the Expedition 1 crew activated various systems on board the station, unpacked equipment that had been delivered, and hosted 3 visiting space shuttle crews and 2 unmanned Russian Progress resupply vehicles. The 3 visiting space shuttles brought equipment, supplies, and key components of the space station. The expedition ended when Discovery undocked from the station on March 18, 2001. The Expedition 1 crew consisted of an American commander and 2 Russians. The commander, Bill Shepard, had been in space 3 times before, all on shuttle missions which lasted at most a week. The crew of 3 were on board the International Space Station for 4.5 months, from early November 2000 to mid-March 2001. Major events during this time included the 3-week-long space shuttle visits, which occurred in December, mid-February, and the end of the expedition in March. October 30th and November 1st, 2018. The Kepler and Dawn telescopes end their respective missions. Launched on March 7, 2009, Kepler is a retired space observatory launched by NASA to discover Earth-sized planets orbiting other stars. Designed to survey a portion of our region of the Milky Way to discover Earth-sized exoplanets in or near habitable zones, and estimate how many of the billions of stars in the Milky Way have such planets, Kepler's sole scientific instrument was a photometer that continually monitored the brightness of approximately 150,000 main sequence stars in a fixed field of view. This data was transmitted to Earth, then analyzed to detect periodic dimmings caused by exoplanets that cross in front of their host stars. Only planets whose orbits are seen edge-on from Earth can be detected. During its over 9 years of service, Kepler observed 530,506 stars and detected 2,662 planets. Already well past its expected lifetime, the 9.5-year-old Kepler had been running low on fuel for months. Its ability to point at distant stars, and identify possible alien worlds worsened dramatically at the beginning of October, but Flight Controller still managed to retrieve its latest observations. NASA's astrophysics director Paul Hertz estimated that anywhere from 2 to a dozen of the planets discovered by Kepler are rocky and Earth-sized in the so-called Goldilocks zone, but Kepler's overall planet census showed that 20 to 50% of the stars visible in the night sky could have planets like ours in the habitable zone for life, he said. Dawn was a space probe launched by NASA in September 2007 with the mission of studying 2 of the 3 protoplanets of the asteroid belt, Vesta and Ceres. Dawn performed several firsts in space exploration. It was the first and only mission to visit both Vesta and Ceres, NASA's first deep space mission to use ion propulsion, and a first mission to orbit more than one target body beyond the Earth and Moon. Dawn was also the first mission to visit a dwarf planet, beating out New Horizon by just a few months, which made its historic flyby past Pluto and Charon in July of 2015. The spacecraft missed 2 scheduled communications with Earth on October 31st and November 1st, leading mission scientists to conclude that the spacecraft had finally run out of fuel. Dawn will now remain in permanent orbit around Ceres, a testament to the pioneering spirit of space exploration. On November 1, 2018, NASA announced that the Dawn spacecraft had exhausted all of its hydrazine fuel and is in an uncontrolled state around Ceres, thus ending its mission. This is SkyTour News. I'm Amanda Curry.